My friends, my very good friends, it's Roger the Excited. I'm telling you, it doesn't get any more excitinger than this. It's exciting est. All right, a long time ago, I talked about, this goes way back, well, this is only a few years ago, but in 2009, they discovered there's a bacteria that survives in heavy metals, toxic metals, that don't kill it, that won't kill it, and they end up squirting out gold. Look, these bacteria digest toxic metals. Toxic means they're going to kill you, and they poop out tiny gold nuggets. Now, I looked at this, and and then because of here's the deal. Here's what happened. I discovered mud fossils. All right, so these are mud fossils, and they're literally body parts from creatures that drowned in a great flood, is what my feeling is, and then they separated along these fascia planes. Interstitium is what they call it now. Now, not only did I see that, but I saw concentrations of metals and minerals in certain joints, and obviously in the lungs and in the kidneys and the heart, and the iron, the red, and all kinds of different minerals and metals that settled out in different ways, in different places. And I could see them in the blood's veins and all that stuff. They call them veins of gold. Absolutely, because they were formed in the veins and arteries. Just a fact. Now, so I am digging deep into the chemistry that works the body, and I end up finding out it's 100% enzymes. The chemistry does not just happen by itself. You need to facilitate it somehow. You need to add energy. You need to add some kind of chemistry from one side of the periodic chart or the other. And that does the breaking. And this particular, what I'm going to show you in a second, this bacteria has a deal where it uses no, this is something else. I'm sorry. Iodine and lead to make gold, very close to gold. And I think we can make gold quite easily. Seriously. With just a little tweak, and I think I know how to do it. I'm not going to tip you off to that right this minute, but I think we can do that. But what we're going to look at now is enzymes, because enzymes are the molecule breakers, and they are so elegant. And I've been talking about them because they are the things that are in the different, the lactobacilluses and the biofidariums and acidophilus. Tyson's goat was going to die. His goat was absolutely going to die. He said, I don't think I can save it. Well, we started looking into this and that, and he ended up giving it. Goats have a gut just like a cow. It's a ruminant, they call it. They have whatever they have. And you have a special bacteria for that. He gave that, and in 24 hours, the goat was back up and running. 36 hours, just like new again. If you don't have the right bacteria, it will not save you. All right, because you're going to have bacteria in you from the day you're born. You're going to have to protect yourself somehow. And normally, the coming through the vaginal canal, there's a lot of bacteria, a lot of things that they're there to protect you. That's like, here, put some of this stuff on, you'll be okay. But if you have like a cesarean or something, then you really have to be swabbed in vaginal juices. It's just the way nature works, and that is your immune system when you're very, very, very young. And then you get it from your mother's milk and so forth. Every formula now it's stuff. Now, what I'm getting at is, if you don't have these bacteria in you, you are not going to be able to create the kind of things like this gold. This bacteria creates gold, and here's what it does. It involves not just the gold but copper. All right, so what it's doing, it talks about how it does it, and it's all about bacteria. It's to deal with this problem. Bacteria employ enzymes, exactly what I've been saying. And then the enzymes do the breaking down. I'm not sure they fully understand it, but then they say when gold compounds are also present, the enzyme is suppressed and the toxic gold compounds remain inside the cell. Well, suppressed or not suppressed, the enzymes are the things that do the breaking up. Now, it depends on what kind of metals they're dealing with and what kind of other molecules are involved in this making and breaking process. Enzymes are nothing more than extreme catalysts. And they do the chemistry in less than the click of your fingers. That it would take, literally, I'm not kidding you now, hundreds of years to do in nature. If you didn't have that catalyst, going with all these, and the catalysts we're looking at now is, I'm really looking at seaweed as something that might have a lot of reactivity in it. A lot of hydroxide groups, which is OH molecule, very, very reactive. There's a whole lot to look at here, but we can. I don't think making gold is all that hard. I want to go into the elixirs, the extraction of all the different things in the periodic chart here, in their, not just their, iron and magnesium and nickel and copper. I want in between there, between copper and zinc, there's literally thousands of different molecules, atoms. Well, actually molecules, because they're a mixture of these two. That's why they say they're stable and unstable isotopes. Well, what's an isotope? Isotope is only something that's in between these. Isotopes exist in between molecules, or atoms. And they say, well, it's stable, it's not stable, that'll last, half-life, they say it's stable for 12 years or something, stable for 16 seconds, whatever it is. The more away from the number of electrons, because everything is made of electrons now, so there's a ton of little electrons in there. And right now, we have the exact correct amount. If I throw a few extra ones on here, I'm going this way, I believe. Yeah. Now, if I go that way, I'm pulling electrons away from the center. So I'm getting less stable going this direction. I'm getting less stable going that direction. Most stable in the center. Not a hard concept to understand. But you have to get into electron flood theory, because with protons and neutrons, you just don't have the capability to create the molecules we know that exist. We know they exist. I don't know how they account for any of the chemistry that they're trying to account for now, when you just say, because the chemistry they're talking about is so simplistic. There's much more elegant chemistry in between these molecules than just it's a copper or it's a zinc, or if you attach it to them, it's a copper zinc. Not that way. There's a ton of different this and a ton of different this. Okay, my friends, Roger once again, and this is about health and actually how to make gold. All right, so that should catch you, how to make the gold. But I really care about the health. And this goes back exactly a year ago. And this, my friend Marguerite sent me this. And I had put this post up a year ago. And I can't even remember who sent me this. But I put this up. Gut health and all disorders are linked, it seems. Autism taking stage now. And I just got this in from somebody. And honestly, I don't remember who it was, but it was about kelp. Now, I said that all gut health is related to all disorders, and now I'm fully invested in that belief. Now, this was from a woman, or apparently, and whoever it was, said, Roger, I used to work with moms of autistic children dealing with food allergies and recovery problems of various sorts. Homeopathic frequency work mostly. We did have some full recoveries if we got lucky and did everything right for that individual. Before that, I worked as a special ed teacher and saw how they were treated. Their medical care is despicable. Psychological diagnosis are even worse. And that's true, because Marguerite's son, John Jr., is doing quite well now, and he was not doing well before. Now, energetic dowsing. This was because apparently I had discussed something with her about John, because that's what she's saying. Energetic dowsing for John, says he would benefit even more from the primal defense by taking 1 capsule of kelp with the dose of primal defense. So, yeah, you know, everybody's got some ideas, so don't just discard it. Now, so no spirulina or any other type of seaweed but the kelp. So we need to look, where does kelp grow? Because this is where I'm going to get, because all of these things grow from different types of organs that are in the body. And there's, I think, of like 1,000 different seaweeds. So kelp apparently has whatever the chemistry is that she or whoever is saying works. Now, it's inexpensive to try. Hopefully it gives synergistic boost to his recovery. I can see him recovering fully. And that's end quotes. Now, I continued to post saying, I cannot claim knowledge on this, but kelp molecule looks as reactive as anything I've ever seen. OH is hydroxyl, extremely aggressive, very interesting chemistry, and it's read about this. It is a cornucopia of chemistry, and it is absolutely. See all these OHs, HOs? That's one of the most reactive substances there is, and it's just saturated with them. Now, let's take this a little further. Now, I would love to go deep into the chemistry, which I don't have a lab to do this, but the chemical composition and analysis of these different types of seaweeds. Now, seaweeds named macroalgae, giant algae, are an extensive group of macro giant-scopic marine organisms, but they are still on the microscopic level at the food source, which is whatever they're feeding on, because they're feeding on something. That's why they grow there. They're not just growing and floating in the air. Now, they comprise a few thousand species, and this was back in 2010, according to the difference of their pigmentation. Now, they separate them out into blue, green, or I'm sorry, they separate them out into brown and green seaweeds and red seaweeds, basically. All right, now, what does that mean? Different colors mean different chemistry. You know that. If you've been around me long enough, you know if you see a different color, it means there's different molecules in there. Simple as that. Colors mean molecules. And the light reflecting off them is the signature of the color, and in a microscopic sense, the molecule. Okay, they found this bacteria. I don't know where they're getting the toxic metals, and then found this bacteria, but that bacteria exists in some toxic metals. Whether or not these are man-made toxic metals, I don't know. But that bacteria can live within it, and it eats into it with enzymes and breaks it down and ends up pooping out gold, which is a very stable molecule, and it's being broken down somewhere in here, eating up all of the metals and converting them, making transitions to them by this extremely elegant chemistry. And now, I'm certain in each one of these different colored and species of seaweed, and there's tons of each type, there's 1,000 or more species. So there's a lot of blue, well, I think they have blue-green, they have green, they have red, they have yellow algae, they have brown algae, they have all different algae. Now what are they doing? They're all eating something different in my mind. Obviously, if there's a different color, there's a different chemistry. Now, there's a lot of chemistry here to examine. I don't know if anybody's done much research on it, but I don't think it's a big thing to do. You just harvest up these different types, find out what is the actual strain of the bacteria that's living in there, and what it ends up pooping out, or enzymes, what enzymes are used, because the enzymes could very well be used in medicines and so forth too. Now the problem is they won't let you patent these kind of living organisms and so forth, so there's very little interest. There's not a whole lot of money to be made. But you could do this on your own, and maybe even get clubs going, who knows, because this stuff just grows in the ocean. Tyson's up there got tons of this stuff. I see it in all his videos. And I can see them growing out of the cracks of the tendon balls and everything else. I see where it's growing from. I have it here growing out of my own stuff. I understand where it's growing from. It's growing from the blood. Literally, it wants to grow from something that is oozing out blood. And that's where these things are growing from. It's almost 100% certain. Now, where is that blood coming from? The kidneys, the lungs, something, your toenails. I don't know. It's all different. It's all different chemistry. Every part of your body is so much different chemistry, you have no idea. Now, something is eating everything. If there's thousands of species, as far as I'm concerned, they're eating thousands of different things, or at least they're creating thousands of different things. And there's got to be uses for some of them. All right, we're going to compare chemistry in a second, but this is about the gold being pooped out by the bacteria. They say understanding how this sea metal durans can poop out gold nuggets means scientists got a huge step closer to unlocking the, listen to this now, biogeochemical cycle of gold. Biogeochemical. Well, we know what a chemical is. It's gold. Bio, we know that's a living thing. Geo, we know that's the earth. So the living thing and the earth make the gold. Or is it the living thing was the earth, and the earth created, I mean, it's a wrapped up cycle. All right, they're saying that the scientists got a huge step closer to unlocking the biogeochemical cycle of gold, which means biological, geological, creating a chemistry, which is the gold. How did we get to gold? How did the biology and the geology work together? It's fully understood now with Mudfossil research. It's quite obvious how it happens. And now we need to look a little deeper into how this bacteria, and what bacteria, just as we are seeing here, this particular bacteria, how does it break apart these heavy metals? Because it's in heavy metals, it's toxic metals to start with. It's like turning lead into gold. Really, basically, it's the exact same thing. It really is exactly the same. So, and of course there's other toxic metals along with it, because again, you don't just have lead and then you have gold and then you have copper and then you have zinc. You got so many different things. That's why they call them toxic metals. They're not just stable metals. When something's toxic, it means it releases, it breaks things and causes other chemistry to happen. All right? That's what metals do. They bind. They call them metal complexes, and that's what it's called, a ligand. There's a lot of chemistry here. There's a lot of biochemistry, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm very deep into this. So I'm willing to talk to anybody about this that has any meaningful discussion about it. Other than just criticism, you don't know what you're talking about, you're just an idiot, so don't talk. No, I'm going to talk, and I may be an idiot, but I know that's not the point here. I am pointing to evidence that has already been done. It's not stuff that I'm necessarily doing, although I am doing research. We're doing research as a team. Not as just one guy saying, I figured this out, No, well, yes, I had to do that in the beginning, but what could I do? Nobody would listen, so I had to start making waves, and then I started getting nasty, and I was getting angry. So now I'm done getting angry. I'm just going to make the waves and just ride the waves. So here we go. Now we're going to look at how these bacteria create these enzymes. Now I'm going to show you the enzymes, because when you see what they show for chemistry and what an enzyme is, it's just hysterical. All right, here it is. An enzyme is a substance produced by a living organism, which is the bacteria, and it acts as a catalyst, which is just snaps and destroys molecules instantaneously by bringing about a specific biochemical reaction, like that bacteria breaking down these toxic metals to produce the gold. And this is what they look like. All right, you see that? That is, and they squirt them out just like that, instantaneously, so fast with the click of their fingers they can make that molecule, and that molecule with the click of its fingers can infect and attack living other organisms and destroy them, and break down other molecules and change them instantly in such elegant ways as we know now exist in between these molecules. That's what these are doing. Reductase and protease and all these names they use, yes, they break molecules apart, but they do it in a very, very, very elegant way compared to what you're going to see is the chemistry I was taught. All right, my friends, this goes back to my earliest days 50 years ago doing this. It's all coming back to me, Gauss's law and all these other things, Coulombic forces. Now, this was a paper I wrote that I ended up having a big fight with my professor and I won. Now, this, I forget what it even was about, but I had to come to the conclusion of how I can make all the statements I'm making about all these things. And at the very end, I come up with Coulombic forces in reference to atomic and molecular structure. Okay, not only molecular, Coulombic, but atomic. And it means they are Coulombic forces. Now, what is a Coulombic force? At the very end, I said, and this is what got me in trouble, I said, I believe that it is evident that Coulombic forces are the nature of atomic and molecular behavior. Well, he went ballistic. Well, then I ended up winning out because I challenged him to do some. I knew exactly what he knew, but I knew more than he knew, and I did every single bit of what he did, and so far beyond. And he finally admitted. He said, I couldn't come up with the answer, and you're right. And here's your A. Have a nice day. He didn't like it, but trust me, I understand what I'm talking about here. Anybody wants to talk to me about this, I am perfectly willing to talk about this until forever, because I love this stuff, and I love it so much more now because I fully understand. Well, I understand it as best I can. Let's just go with that. And now we're going to try to learn. But you have to understand, electron flood theory solves the whole problem. And here we're going to go with Gauss's law, and then we're going to back through this to show you really what it all boils down to as far as electromagnetism, because it all started with electromagnetism. This goes way back, 1700s, 1773. All right, you just have to understand, there's more to it than just the thinking part and writing down all these formulas and things. You have to be able to actually do it and convert heat and, in what they call a calorimeter that checks the temperature versus the weights and, all kinds of things. And then you end up getting, all your calculations and so forth. This is so long ago, I forget 99% of this, to be perfect. But I understand it now, so I don't have to worry about these little details anymore. But anyway, you need to do more than just the thinking part of this. You need to do, everything. And you need to work with a lot of different people. You can't just work by yourself. Otherwise, you have one line of vision. Now, I have learned so much from so many people, and I'm learning every day. And if you don't learn every day, then you're just not thinking, because every day I wake up, something new I realize something is not the way I thought it was, or I was taught it was, let's put it that way, because, I listened to what I was taught. Although I did have fights. Basically I had fights from day one. If I saw something I didn't agree with, I didn't agree with it. What are you going to do? You just say yes, yes, yes? No, I never did. And I had to actually have to go start my own business because I think, I just never could get along with anybody. I guess that's my problem. But if I felt I was right, I felt I was right, and I still feel I'm right with this stuff. It's not I'm going to attack anybody or be upset, but I need to be able to at least express myself. And I found that as soon as you express yourself against somebody that feels threatened by you, they'll ruin you. They'll destroy you, and that's what happened to me every time. Even when I was in the Army, I'm telling you, I had such a I fought back with everything, and I always ended up coming out on top as far as I'm concerned. Nobody ever made me get down on my knees. You know, I had to back down a couple times, you know, to a point where I had to retreat and regroup, as I am now, because I was actually told by the police and lawyers to stop bothering some of these universities. And because I said, you know, you're not doing your fiduciary job. You know, your fiduciary duty is to act in the best interest of the students. I'm presenting CAT scans and DNA and chemistry and all that stuff with my mud fossils, which everybody knows about now, and they still refuse to look at them. They call that a rock. So that's just a rock. That's nothing. That's not a bone. We don't want to see it. Don't bring it down here. I said, well, I have DNA and CAT scans and anatomists and all that. Nope, we don't want to see it. To me, that's a fiduciary failure. But I was told, stay off of that. Now, I did for years. But I see no reason not to speak about it. I think it's a valid topic of discussion. Who's supposed to speak up for the students? At this point, they're really intimidated and extorted. The extortion is, you pay us or we won't give you a piece of paper that says you're smart enough to go get a job. And the intimidation is, if you don't do exactly what we tell you, we'll make it so that this piece of paper won't mean anything because your grades will be so low that you'll never get the job. So, you know, there's a lot to, and the peer review means that we're not going to let anybody say anything that we don't want them to say. We're going to stick behind our buddies and keep it down. Nobody will talk about the mud fossils. Nobody will peer review that. It's nothing but ignoring and criticism. That I shouldn't be talking about it because I'm making people confused about the reality of geology. Even though everything I presented is physical and material and DNA. And so all kinds of things I have presented that need to be looked at in a more positive manner. Now, this is the website. It's not going to come up for a while now, so don't get excited. It's been years sitting here dormant, but the DNA, and you can't get into it, so don't try. It'll just say it's not there. Now, but this is the DNA. And I had Jesse Garant was the ones that did the CAT scans, the top CAT scan people in the world. And Gil Hadley did the anatomy. He's an anatomist, autopsy anatomist. And we worked together, and he discovered the fuzz and the fascia, and we discovered together the interstitium, which in 2015 is when they decided that they would call it interstitium, which is these balls that they never knew existed that held all the fibers, which they ended up calling fuzz. Well, when you see the stuff that's in the mud fossils, you can actually see them. You can actually see these things they could never see before. Because here, look. Hold on, I'll find it. All right, I told you, I have giant human beings. That's a giant human being fingertip. It's been DNA tested, CAT scanned, anatomist, everything. That's where the ligaments go in there. This is where the apical tuft is here, right at the very tip. I have another one here from a more eroded one. We have the biggest apical tuft that sits at the tip of our bone of our finger, of any primate. And the fibers are all in here. You can see them. And then you can see all the interstitium balls in the microscope. Now, you can't see it just looking at it, but you can see all these things. And I had seen all these things. And when I talked to Gil Hadley, I said, do you know about this stuff? Because he was an anatomist. And he was really, really excited. And we worked together. And because he understood it. He did, well, here, let me show you. All right, this is a little gruesome, and this goes back to, this is the time I was working with him 7 years ago. And it was called Fuzz. He just did another one just recently, fascia and stretching, and they always called it Fuzz. This goes back 7 years ago. This is when I was working with him 7 years ago the whole time. Fascia is all around us. This was a new one he did. But you know, outstanding. Understood everything, and nobody else understood it. He was the only one in the world, other than people in Germany that I contacted, and the only reason they were looking into this fascia was because it was involved in pain, and were doing rolfing, which is where you stretch the fascia and you pull it, and you know, because you want it to be lubricated. The synovial fluid. See this? Synovial joints in humans. Synovial fluid is not only in the joints, it's in the tendons where they slip together. It's synovial fluid. It's 4 times more slippery than Teflon on Teflon. So you need to keep these things. Every time he was looking at stuff, they were all literally glued together. Because that's what happens to you. You get up in the morning, you're glued together. If you don't stretch, you're glued together. You got to get those things moving. And anyway, this goes, like I say, years ago we worked together on this. And 5 years ago, see this here? 7 years ago we were working on this together. Now, watch this. All right, it's 2020 now. So it was 7 years ago Gil and I were working on this. And we found it and we discovered it. Now, look at this. Meet your interstitium, a new organ. And they found it back in 2015. Now, this was just, I don't know why they're talking about it now, the connective tissue, but these are all the fluid-filled spaces in between, and then they have the little balls. Now, I don't know if they show it, how well they show it. I just clicked on this, but because I wanted to show that. Let's see. Probe-based, they're using some kind of laser stuff. Well, I'm using giants. All right, now here's what it says here later in this article. It says, the tissue sample removed from body were quickly frozen and allowed the fluid-filled spaces to stay open so researchers could see them under a microscope. They'd never seen them with the fluids filled in the spaces in between the interstitium fibers and balls. Now, later the researchers saw the same fluid-filled spaces in other samples of connective tissue taken from other parts of the body without cancer. So he said, the more tissues I saw, the more I realized it's everywhere in the body. It's everywhere. It is. It's every single place in the body. It coats all your organs. Literally everything in your body is coated with fascia. Every tendon fibril, your muscles, your everything. Everything has to be separated from the other parts. Your membranes, it's all the same sort of stuff. Now they call it an interstitium, and they're balls and fibers and well, here, let me show you what it looks like. All right, that's the interstitium, which is nothing more than pleura on a lung. It's extremely dense on the lung. And that lung was DNA tested, CAT scanned, and the whole 9 yards. It's a human lung. And any anatomist, you know, that's where the blood and the flap at the bottom invests into the fascia system of the whole body. Now, that's the same fabric that's on this. This is a no-toe. It's a new species of creatures that we have. That's where the fibia would have laid right up against there. This is where the big toe would be. Basically, it's just like this. And the toes are in there. The toes are in there. They're surrounded by flesh. And we have these in multiple quantities and all kinds of layers of degradation. Now, everything has that fabric on it. This is very pronounced. But if you look at it with a microscope, you're going to see exactly the same thing. It's just that's real dense on the pleura of a lung. All right, I'm just going to apologize I know that this is a mess of a video. I've been doing 6 different things at the same time, trying to make cut after cut, and I know it's a mess, but it is what it is. And I feel like a kid, like 5 years old again. Everything, not a single thing I can see, I don't need to talk about. I need to understand and look and see things nobody's ever thought about before in this way that we are thinking about things now. It's never been even considered, the things that we understand now. And then with electron flood theory, it just blows the lid off of everything. Yeah, after Mudfossils, I mean, it's just out of control. So I'm sorry for the mess of a video, and I'm probably going to mess up almost all my videos now because I cannot keep my mind focused. I'm telling you, it's just a fact. every time I turn around, somebody else is hitting me with something new. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And before long, I'm just lost. But I'm having a good time. I'm like a kid in a candy store and everything. There's just candy everywhere. It's kind of fun. It's a very unexpected place I'm at in this time of my life, which is, I'm at the end of my life, so it's kind of exciting. Okay, before I show his final part of his experiment, I want to say he did an awesome job. This guy is the real deal. This is the kind of work that should be supported and encouraged. He's young enough to really make an impact in the world. I'm way past that point. Now, getting back to his seaweed. Now, there is thousands of different seaweeds, comprise a few thousand species. Now, I can tell you for 100% certainty, they are living off of different body parts because the earth is made 100% of biology. So whatever they are, these different, the red, the green blue, the yellow, the brown, all these different algae, and these kelps and these forests are growing there. Well, they're growing there for a reason, because there is a food source there, and that food source is related to that organ, and that organ is related to the chemistry that was in that organ, and that chemistry is related to the health of your life, and that is related to enzymes and bacteria, and it creates certain molecules. Now, let's take it from there. This is an absolute mind blower. Absolute mind blower. I'm going from the seaweed, thinking, boy, there's got to be a lot of different accumulation of different minerals and metals depending upon the species of seaweed. Now listen to this. This is Nighthawk. This goes back 3 years or so. He's saying, because I just was searching, alchemy, making gold and so forth, and this came up. The origin, a possible origin to alchemy, the gold rain experiment. I just watched the first couple of minutes. I've only gotten up to I got this far, and it just exploded my mind. So I have to stop and show you this. Watch this. Now, I'm going to talk during this. Now, when you see all of these little you see these little sparkles? In my world, what is happening there is a breaking of a molecular bond. And when that does, you get it flashes light, because it's an energetic release. Now, what happens is you get precipitants. And they look like this. They look like gold. Now watch, just listen to what he has to say. And he's going to get to the seaweed part. I just fell on the floor. You see all the little flashes of light? As I tell you, I've told you 100 times, you see something flash light, it means there's an energetic reaction going on there. Something hitting something.
Hi everyone, in this video I will be putting to the test an idea I've had for the last few years about a possible origin to alchemy, specifically the aspect of alchemy about turning lead into gold. Now, a lot of you might be familiar with this particular experiment known as golden rain, which is a classic science experiment done in classrooms and things like that using lead nitrate and potassium iodide. Now,
all right, potassium iodide. All right, there's your potassium. And here's your iodine over here. You're on both complete ends of the periodic table. And then you're trying to make gold, which is somewhere in between. Or actually is yeah, that's right, somewhere in between the potassium and the iodide. Now, I think there might be a way to literally create the gold. Now, what you're seeing is almost gold to me. I would like to know exactly what it is, and maybe he will say it. I didn't go very deep into this. But he's got lead in here too, which is your PD. No, your PB. I'm sorry. Getting old. Anyway, so here goes.
Now, this is an experiment that uses a lead compound and turns it into a substance that very much looks like gold. And if you didn't have a knowledge of atoms and molecules and other modern chemistry, you might
When you see that giving off that gold color, what does that mean?
actually believe
It
that
means that there's something got to be really close to the molecular configuration, because it's spitting out light that looks like gold to me. Now, it may have other reactivity that gold would not have, but it's pretty damn close as far as I can determine, or at least there's some bond that is similar in its reactivity to light as gold is. Whether it is, because full gold look like gold too, and it's fool's gold, it's not gold. Now, how do you get that last little bond to go down to get everything out except gold? I don't know, but I'm sure there is a way. And I think I do know a way. And I might as well just tell you, I think it's got to do with frequency. If you can, once you get it down into where it's making all that little changing, if you were shaking that water a certain way, you may be able to create a situation where gold is going to form instead of this whatever else it is that looks like gold. All right, I'm going to go back through this whole thing, but let's just look at what he has to say here. He says he's trying to make gold from these different ingredients, and he's trying to find different ingredients, and he's saying that one of the things, that a key ingredient is lead nitrate, would not have been available at the time, according to whoever his researcher is. I don't agree with that. I think that every single molecule there is basically is going to exist in these seaweeds, because they are extracting them from different areas of the body. That's why they have all those different colors. And if you look at the Rainbow River and all these different places, they are different colors because they have different bacteria, because the bacteria live in different places on creatures, and they eat different things from that creature, and they do different jobs in that creature, and the liver and the lungs and the kidneys and the spleen and all of that stuff has chemistry that goes along with it. Specifically, a lot is in with your digestive system and your kidneys, a very, very active area. And then of course you have bile, and you have all kind of excretions in your body that are molecules that break down other molecules, and that's how things are transferred throughout your body to deliver your food and to remove all the waste. So he's talking about this molecule would not have been available. So instead I attempt to use lead acetate, which I was able to make with other processes. I believe the most likely ancient source of an iodine component is the ash from burnt seaweed. This is what kills me. I can't believe it. The iodine component is the ash from burnt seaweed. So there's certain types of seaweed that is going to have this certain type of ash that is going to have the iodine. Now there's going to be other seaweed that's going to have the other stuff. Now, how you remove it and how you separate it and all that stuff, I have no idea. But I'm going to tell you right now, I think seaweed, in all of its varieties, thousands, each one of them has a specific metabolism. And that what a metabolism means, it breaks down things. And it breaks down things differently because obviously you see the different colors. Different molecules, different minerals, different metals, different enzymes, different bacteria. So much to look at there. And it lives in the ocean, and it's just a natural product. Can't patent it. Electronics. And this talks about frequency and vibration. And also Tesla talked about the rule of 369. Everything is frequency and vibration as energy. That's all there is. And he talked about 369, which I also saw in some medieval texts about something was explained by the rule of 369. I can't remember who wrote that. I think it was Lord Byron. Anyway, here, this is where I think we can do frequency and shake those molecules into very sophisticated. You see, as they start off in the low frequencies, you're way down in the low frequency range, 345 hertz, you just get a very basic pattern. When you get way up here, now don't forget, in electron flood theory, there's thousands of particles here, thousands and thousands and thousands, and not just one big proton and one electron, which this would be hydrogen. No, there's about 1900 particles. Now, as you get up into these bigger particles here, like, first thing you're going to see is the rule of 8, which is all those around the nucleus is going to be a rule of 8. And it appears to work fine with salt, because the salt is a plus or minus particle, and this is vibrating. That's nothing more than plus or minus. Anytime there's a vibration, it's a plus or minus. I don't care what anybody says. That's all it is. It's vibrating, push, 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 push to shove. See the rule of 8 showing up over and over and over? Now, as you get up in here, that might be, right there, that might be gold. You might have to be at that frequency. Well, that might be gold. You have to be at that frequency. That looks very stable. But anyway, you have to find the frequency where all of those things lock in to the stability of gold, which is an extremely stable atom.